What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite my colleague, Dr. Tahira Mohamed, who works for the Jameel Observatory and ILRI, the International Livestock Research Institute, Tahira to come up. She's our regional engagement and partnerships lead. And many of you may know Tahira. She's a very dynamic researcher who's becoming a communication and engagement person. So I have to watch my role here. So Tahira, please come up. We're going to speak from the microphones because we're also streaming this for the outside world. Tahira, there should be a few slides and you can click. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I am really thrilled to welcome you all to a gathering of dryland resilience and prosperity. And what do I mean by this? I had a pleasure of doing research in northern Kenya, looking at how pastoralist livelihood have transformed for the past 40 years, since 1970 to 2020. And maybe you're wondering why 1970s? In Kenya, 1970s, just after the independence, and in northern Kenya particularly, we were at the period of severe drought that time, and also political shift. And there was what is called, many of you know, shifter war, whereby pastoralists were trying, like part of the northern Kenya is trying to secede to Somalia, and because of that there was war. And this war really impacted pastoral livelihood, resulting in militarization, territorialization, and restriction of movement. And in addition to that, then drought affected the community. So 1970 was a turning point. A lot of political challenges, ecological challenges, and pastoralism were at the center of all this. And when I was doing this, my research, I want to start by a quote that someone who was living that time in the 1970s said. In the 1970s, pastoral economy was depleted. People were just surviving on relief food. And no Borana community who was living in that part of Kenya had any building or businesses. When Richard Ho, who was one of the scientists working in northern Kenya in the 1970s, came back in 2000 to work for DFID, he was extremely shocked. People built their livestock, businesses were flourishing, infrastructures developed, educated pastoralists were emerging, and also civil society were mushrooming. And during that time, even the pastoralist parliamentary group, the strongest caucus in Kenya's current parliament, was forming during that time in the 1990s, early 2000s. So Richard Ho, who was a researcher for DFID, was so shocked, like how are people emerging? How was this livelihood transforming? And that for me is a process. And today, this slide you see, dryland is adaptable and resilience. And resilience is through the quote that I read for you now. It's the process. It's not just people living, but then everything shifting, the livelihood transforming, people making it despite the challenges, despite the crisis and all these things. And this resilience is often threatened by different issues, especially climate change, floods, and also shifting policies, sometimes which are unfriendly to pastoralism and development. And this is even exacerbated by climate change, which is making the drought and the flood very frequent and also protracted. But then this variability and the challenges that the pastoralists face make them to be seen also misunderstood and also to be seen as, you know, like backward, and they're seen as like they're not making use of the variability. But as Jameel Observatory, as you can see, a multidisciplinary research action together with our partners like University of Edinburgh, International Livestock Research Institute, Save the Children Community Jameel, and also other partners who are all in this room today. We do three things, basically to demystify the narrative that pastoralists are, you know, kind of, you know, using variability. Pastoralists are making their livelihood despite the challenges that I mentioned earlier. And we do this thing through three processes. Number one is research. We identify solutions by co-creating evidence on bottlenecks to effective early action, and testing solutions that can bring change, that can make pastoralism to be understood as it is, because it's a livelihood that is dynamic, that is transforming despite the crisis that they see. The second thing that we do in this space is convening dialogues, and many of you have participated in our dialogues. Previously, we had the community of practice since Jameel was established back in 2021. So we had like 5 community of practices, and this community of practices enable us to identify dryland challenges, and you get partners to collaborate together to find solutions for these problems. How can we support the drylands and the dynamics within the dryland? And then thirdly, we also work around capacities of dryland stakeholder, and one of the flagship activities, the Dryland Futures Academy, that you will be hearing about in the coming few days. And then on research, we have quite a number of PhD students you can see on the slide. They are doing fascinating research on locally led anticipatory action on feeds, on anticipating food crisis. And you can see all this is all these research challenges, research questions came about because of the community of practices to identify where do we need research, where do we need data. And through this collaboration, we have all these PhDs and masters. And myself, I was a postdoc when I started together with my colleague, Samuel, who is inside the room. But also we have our other team who are not on this slide, but then they are mind behind this in Edinburgh, Professor Alan, Nathan, and also Peter. So yeah, you will get to see all of them in this room in the coming 2 days. And finally today, I am so happy and excited to be joined by our neighbor, ICPALD, IGAD Centre for Pastoralism, Pastoral Area and Land Development, and SPARC, Supporting Pastoralism and Agriculture in Recurrent and Protracted Crises, to convene this insightful research and dialogue. And I wish you all the best as we enjoy and talk about the dryland communities and their resilience. Thank you.
Many, many thanks, Tahira. There were some pictures up there of lots of young people. I think they were all young people. They're almost all in the room, so we hope you all, before you leave, have a chance to engage with them. They're all associated with the University of Edinburgh, and so I'd like to invite Professor Geoff Simm. He is, head of the Division of Global Agriculture. University, you love long names. Division of Global Agriculture and Food Systems in the Royal Dick School of Veterinary Studies. And he is kind of our overall host for the Jameel Observatory. Oh, you don't need a slide, you need a microphone.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks, Tahira. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, colleagues, it's a very great pleasure for me to welcome you on behalf of Edinburgh University and the Jameel Observatory to this workshop. As Peter said, I'm Geoff Simm. I'm in the University of Edinburgh, but also co-director of the Jameel Observatory. And as Tahira's outlined, the Jameel Observatory is a research for action partnership between ourselves in Edinburgh, the International Livestock Research Institute here in Nairobi and in Ethiopia, Save the Children, the Jameel Poverty Action Lab, and Community Jameel. And at the heart of the Jameel Observatory, as Tahira's mentioned, is our community of practice. And it's a huge pleasure to see so many of you who are active in that community here today. And if you're not already active in that, hopefully you will join us. It's a real privilege for us to be working with so many of you in the room through the observatory, but also especially today and tomorrow in partnership with SPARC and ICPALD in co-organising this workshop. In the face of environmental and I'd add geopolitical challenges and shocks, the theme of this workshop on resilience and prosperity is highly topical. And I'd argue so too are partnerships, because partnerships are so critical in facing shocks. We have a very exciting program ahead of us in the next 2 days. It's really only my task to wish you a very productive and engaging time at the workshop. So please do enjoy it, make as many connections as you can. On behalf of Edinburgh and Jameel, a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geoff. Okay, let's move on. We've heard SPARC mentioned. We've heard the long name of SPARC. Guy is going to explain what SPARC is all about. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Guy Jobbins. He's the executive director, not just the director. You execute as well.
I do.
So
Ruthlessly.
Ruthlessly, good.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you all for joining us today. And indeed, thank you very much to our distinguished guests for joining us as well. My name's Guy. It's a great pleasure to be here. Supporting pastoralism and agriculture in recurrent and protracted crisis, SPARC has been running for the last 6 years, since early 2020, and it's been supported by the UK's FCDO and Canada's IDRC. And it's been a partnership between Co-Water International, Mercy Corps, the International Livestock Research Institute, and ODI Global. And it's been our great pleasure to collaborate and have partnerships with both Jameel and ICPALD, valued colleagues. And I believe that the three organizations together have so many overlapping interests and areas of concern that it felt very appropriate for us to meet together today as a group. For the last 6 years, SPARC has worked in 18 countries, from Mali to Afghanistan, across the Sahel, Great Horn of Africa, and the Middle East, including 12 of the world's most fragile countries. And the underlying premise that guided SPARC was that the vast majority of aid that has gone into areas experiencing protracted crisis has been short-term and a band-aid. It never addresses the underlying drivers of fragility and conflict and vulnerability. And when people experience successive shocks, their resilience is greatly tested. And we know that the people who live in the drylands of these areas are highly resilient, highly entrepreneurial, but even their ability to cope is tested when they experience such successive shocks. Over the next 2 days, there'll be a very, very rich program, and I'm delighted that SPARC researchers will be able to share stories of how they have brought evidence from the field, from these countries, to influence the programs and policies of aid actors, donors, national governments, and global policy dialogues. I think the overriding message that we've been left with from SPARC is that when we're confronted with situations that appear very difficult and sometimes very hard for the people who are going through these protracted crises, there is a desire to make radical change and to intervene decisively with outside support that will alleviate the burden of suffering. But the challenge is that this is often born out of a series of assumptions about what people need and what people can do already and are already doing. And in reality, any aid interventions are going to be small compared to the assets and networks that people already bring to their own survival. So it's important to understand deeply the context in which interventions are made. And by interventions, I might mean developmental interventions, but I might mean digital entrepreneurs who have ideas about how new technologies might be able to provide new upgrade livelihoods and new opportunities for people in these areas. But by contrast, what we really think is important is to understand the context deeply and support what people are already doing and support the innovation, the dynamism, the flexibility of drylands people. And in a world which extols the virtues of moving fast and breaking things, we think it's important to move gently and heal things, for these are environments in which there has already been a great deal of disruption. So I'd just like to echo the calls that some other people have made in these opening remarks, and to say that this is an opportunity to converse with each other, to meet, to extend our networks, and to consider what comes next. The SPARC journey is ending as a program in December, but as one river disperses into little estuaries and tributaries and streams, they'll reconverge in other programs, and I'm very much hoping that this is an opportunity to have discussions that will lead to that work. And not least, next year, of course, is the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, which will draw additional attention to these urgent issues. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Very much looking forward to the next 2 days, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Guy. It's really been a pleasure co-organizing this with you, and indeed we're looking forward to a really interesting set of discussions. Let me contact, so when we began to prepare all of this, we were talking also with other colleagues in the region, and we came into contact again with ICPALD, the IGAD Centre for Pastoralism and Livestock Development here in the Horn of Africa. And we were so delighted when ICPALD said, we would like to be part of all of this. So I'd like to call Dr. Dereje Wakjira. He's the director of ICPALD, to come up and give his opening remarks. I believe you were originally a forester, but somehow you jumped into livestock. So Super, this is a perfect example of what we're talking.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for also exposing. For us, this same as also rangeland. It's a common poor resource, and that's where the passionation comes to cross over. Excellencies, delegates from member states, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I just want to say thank you very much for honoring our invite to this joint event on building the resilience and prosperity of pastoralist and dryland communities, which is a research and policy forum organized by ICPALD, SPARC, and Jameel Observatory. We intend to bring researchers, we intend to bring practitioners for reflection as IGAD, the dryland and pastoralism is high on agenda because not only because of the size of the land, but also it is an ecosystem that connects the region and that drives the regional integration. You can also see the demonstration at the highest level is Excellency Mohamed Ware, Deputy Executive Secretary, is in this event that demonstrate our interests. The 2 days are very much outlined. What I want to say is a lot of people have been laboring in dryland, looking at research. They are going to present their finding. On practitioner side, a lot have been done in the past. This is the best time to reflect so that we shape the narrative and the policy together. The 2 days are well outlined. I just want to highlight 2 issues. That's what we brought into this as ICPALD. There are applied research have been supported. Universities that are based in dryland from Uganda, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. They will make their presentation. They will share their insights from their observation as well as also physically in that environment. We have also a couple of PhD researchers that are working on applied research. We give a forum for them also to present their progress as well as also share ideas with others. With that, from onset, I just want to acknowledge the support of the government of Sweden, IDRC through FCDO and government of Canada through IDRC that's provided a means for us to appear here. Also, the partnership that is embraced by Jameel Observatory and SPARC is very much appreciated from our side. With this, I want to invite His Excellency Mohamed Ware, the Deputy Executive Secretary, to make his opening speech. Your Excellency, please.
Good morning. Let me, on the outset, thank the organizers of this gathering, this very important gathering, with IGAD, the Jameel Observatory, SPARC, the participants. Really, it shows the interest that this subject brings to people. As a son of a pastoralist, it is really, on a personal note, very inspiring and very gratifying to see that there's so much knowledge and so much experience and authority from our member states is invested in this subject. I also thank the government of Kenya for hosting us in this very wonderful venue. IGAD, of course, is of its member states, and Kenya is a founding member of IGAD, invested a lot in blood and treasure in making IGAD region what it is today in peace and security over the years. So we are very grateful, not only for this subject matter, but for the overall commitment that IGAD receives from the government of Kenya. We are here today and tomorrow, I think the 2 days, to discuss the issue of pastoralism and the issues that are around it. Pastoralism for IGAD is very central to our being because much of our land mass from an area standpoint is classified as arid or semi-arid. Therefore, it really constitutes a big bulk of our attention. But also, it is where our member states get joined. Many of our dryland areas, arid and semi-arid areas are also on borderlands. Therefore, it is where countries come together. It is where two very important IGAD mandates get exercised. That is peace and security and regional integration. So not only is the livelihood and the well-being of pastoralists and arid and semi-arid residents important, but it's also important in that regard. Therefore, for us to really pay the proper attention to this subject, the first thing we need to do is really to change the narrative around pastoralism, around dryland areas, around semi-arid areas, from being marginal communities, borderland communities, crime-ridden areas, areas of illegal economic activity, to really what they are: dynamic, resilient, productive, resourceful people who are managing their lives under difficult circumstances. When that narrative changes from being problem areas to areas of opportunity, I think we can see a transformation, not only of semi-arid areas and pastoralists, but for the entire region. IGAD, of course, because of the importance of this subject, has constituted ICPALD, which is a co-organizer of this event, focusing on all aspects of pastoralism and livestock and related subjects. We also have the big Idris initiative, the Drought Disaster Resilience Initiative, which from the none other than our heads of states and government brought their attention and solidarity with each other to focus on the issue of drought and to make communities that are affected by drought resilient. Drought, of course, is also in the DNA of IGAD. IGAD originally was established as an organization that deals with drought and the drought issues, desertification and drought issues. Therefore, that history, that DNA is still there. So through this initiative, not only as partners being investing and helpful in this regard, but member states themselves have contributed to this issue by investing literally billions of dollars from their own domestic resources in resilience and drought management. As you discuss in the next 2 days, I would urge you to focus as part of your deliberations on some of these issues. The first one, of course, is how to make these communities resilient. Resilience has sometimes been overused, but basically what resilience means is that people are not living in circumstances that make them constantly vulnerable to shocks. I often say that climate issues, droughts, heavy rainfall, flooding affects Europe, affects America, affects Australia, affects parts of Asia, everywhere. The problem is that these countries, these communities are able to withstand these shocks to the point that they are not governing their life. They are not dominating their life. In fact, one can say that development is when you manage the climate and the weather and the natural disasters to a point where they are no longer, if the rains fail, for example, in Samburu or in Somalia or in northern Uganda, it's a big thing. If the rains fail in any number of other countries, life goes on. This is what it means to be resilient and to be able to manage shocks. So we have to find ways of making these communities not only live with these problems, but to bounce back from these shocks. Another issue which is very important is diversification of the pastoralist economy. Pastoralism relies a lot on livestock and on dryland agriculture, but there are greater possibilities, opportunities that can be developed, that can be exploited to make pastoralist lives more resilient, but also more productive, including business development, including value chain additions to the livestock, such as meat processing, hides and skins, Arabic gum, these things that really bring value to pastoralist lives. A very important issue is rangeland, or let's say land management. Pastoralists occupy some of the most valuable lands in our region and throughout the world, which attracts commercial interests, tourist companies, mining companies, people that can muster capital to take advantage of this land. When you put that with the fact that pastoralist communities are often marginalized, then you can see the pressure on pastoralist communities, especially on pastoralist land. Therefore, it's very important to have a very strong governance mechanism for pastoralist communities and for pastoralist land. In fact, when we engage with our member states, we point out that there seems to be double standards, even in basic things as policing, tolerating criminality, cattle rustling, for example, a phenomenon which is very common in pastoralist communities, is very much tolerated throughout the region, but it's not tolerated in settled communities. You cannot, do cattle rustling in farming communities, for example. So, what really is basic personal criminality tends to be reflected to entire communities, and that kind of thinking then leads to these pressures for this land to be expropriated. Finally, we have to find ways of making pastoralist life, dryland agriculture sustainable. There was a time when there was a debate whether, in fact, nomadic pastoralism or pastoralism in general was sustainable. Maybe we should force these people to become settled communities. Maybe we should aggregate them. I remember a campaign to really force Somali pastoralists into these socialist-inspired settled communities in Somalia. With the pressure of climate change, with a lot of areas that were originally more, let's say, green and with more rainfall and more predictable rainfall patterns, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe more areas will become dryland, maybe more areas will become arid and semi-arid, It's therefore now to actually look at it from the other angle and see that pastoralism and pastoralist livelihood and pastoralist economic systems is maybe the way for many people that now do not see this in their future. So with all these elements, I hope we can master the knowledge and the experience in this room to bear on these issues. I will conclude by saying we can make these arguments, we can make these changes, we can make these interventions best through evidence-based arguments. That is why knowledge management, knowledge sharing, inviting the universities is such an important element in this whole dialogue. I look forward to a very vigorous, a very honest debate on this subject, on livelihoods of pastoralists, not being political correct on some issues. I joke with many of my friends. I wish P.S. Harsama was here today. I used to joke with him and I say, listen, when you no longer have Ministry of ASALs, when you no longer have Ministry of Karamoja Affairs, when you no longer have Ministry of Rural Development in Somalia, when pastoralism becomes central to the governance of a nation, and they enjoy the same rights and privileges, and the same expectations are expected from them, then that is when we have reached where we need to go. Thank you very much.
Many, many thanks, Your Excellency. That was the tour de force, so we know why we're here. We will be indeed looking at this issue around the new narratives. So it's really great that you started with that. There's a lot of evidence going to be shared here, a lot of knowledge sharing, and some of those issues are going to come back. So I want to re-emphasize a bit. You talked about we should touch some of the tough topics and not be too careful sometimes. So I encourage you to let's have really good dialogue and debate as we spend our time these 2 days. Okay, we mentioned we're in Kenya, and you started off by saying that Kenya was really critical to the formation of IGAD, and you emphasized that the countries themselves have been the ones driving the really big investments in these agendas. So we're really happy that Mr. Ambrose, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, he's here representing indeed the Ministry of ASALs. He will tell us about what ASALs are and how important they are. So please, on behalf of the government, we're so happy you're here. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, delegates from the IGAD member states, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Jambo tena. Karibuni. I am Lore Ambrose, Acting Secretary for ASAL Development. I am standing here on behalf of the Principal Secretary, State Department for ASALs and Regional Development, Mr. Kelo Alsama, who unfortunately could not be here with us because of unavoidable official commitments. Allow me to convey his sincere gratitude to all of you for accepting to attend this important workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just, I've been sent to represent him, so without much ado, let me read his speech. Distinguished guests, development partners, pastoralist leaders, researchers, civil society representatives, and friends of pastoralists and drylands. Good morning. Firstly, I want to welcome our friends from other countries to Kenya. Kenyans are friendly, hakuna matata. It is a great honor to accept your invitation and to join you today in officially opening this vital workshop, which focuses on strengthening the resilience and prosperity of pastoralists and dryland communities. I commend the conveners, ICPALD, the Jameel Observatory, and the SPARC program for bringing together such a diverse and dedicated group of stakeholders. This gathering is not just another meeting in a city hotel, but a time for deep reflection by researchers, renewal, and resolution by policy influencers. Kenya's drylands are often misunderstood, yet they cover 80% of our landmass, support millions of livelihoods, and are home to rich cultures and resilient ecosystems. These landscapes are not marginal, they are strategic national assets. Pastoralism, deep-rooted in these regions, is a dynamic, adaptive, and forward-looking system that contributes to food security, economic growth, and ecological balance. Last year, the pastoralist leaderships and policy makers gathered in Wakjira. That event marked a turning point in Kenya's policy dialogue. It has turned the leadership resolutions into government action, currently coordinated by the State Department for ASALs and Regional Development. These policy dialogues builds effectively on the momentum of the 4th Pastoralist Leadership Summit held in Wakjira last December. That summit made bold resolutions, including the protection and restoration of rangelands, preventing dryland degradation, and safeguarding pastoralist livelihoods. These commitments reflect a growing recognition that resilience and prosperity in drylands must be built on community agency, secure land rights, and sustainable resource management. Over the next 2 days, during this workshop, international dryland experts will gather to explore pathways to prosperity and resilience for drylands and pastoralists, advancing dryland futures through innovation and technology, and investing in and delivering for dryland people. These themes are not merely theoretical, they are urgent and actionable. They directly address the challenges we encounter in Kenya's drylands: drought, insecurity, climate change, and underinvestment. I'm particularly encouraged by the conference objective, which is to reframe narratives and policies around pastoralism as a pathway to prosperity, to critically discuss emerging evidence and lessons for policy and practice, to facilitate collaboration and strengthen the capacities of institution and community. This conference provides a valuable platform for linking our national efforts to global milestones, such as the 2026 International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists and the UNCCD COP17 in Mongolia. These objectives align closely with the government of Kenya's priority under the ASALs policy framework and our commitment to inclusive climate resilient development. Let this workshop serve as a platform for bridging research and policy, amplifying pastoralist voices, and co-creating solutions that are locally led, evidence-based, and globally relevant. As we move forward, let us remember no community should be left behind in these conversations, and no rangeland should be left and lost to degradation. In conclusion, I would like to thank all participants for their dedication to strengthening pastoralism, dryland economies, and building resilient pastoralist communities. Please take time to engage fully, collaborate boldly, and leave this workshop with renewed energy and a shared purpose on building the resilience and prosperity of pastoralist and dryland communities. I also encourage you to explore areas around Nairobi for the benefit of our international friends. Future meetings should be held in drylands and pastoralist regions. With these few remarks, I now declare this workshop officially open. Asanteni sana na karibu.
Thank you very much. You said at the end, renewed energy. I'm really happy to hear that because we're going to hopefully have a very energetic couple of days. Sometimes we spend a lot of time sitting and talking. We're going to really try to energize you. And I'm really, really pleased now that we have perfectly profiled a colleague who's going to give some keynote remarks. Dr. Emmanuel Seck is Executive Director, you can see, of ENDA Energie. And this is one of the leading civil society groups, I think, worldwide, also in Africa. He is from Senegal. I have a small profile. I need to pull a few things out here for you. But Emmanuel, come up on this. Please come up on the stage. He's an environmentalist, maybe before it became popular. He works with the UN Climate Change Convention. The framework for Climate Change Convention is called the Slow Onset Expert Group. The group is not slow. The onsets are slow. Yeah. He's also chair of the global board of the Global Network for Disaster Reduction. He works with the UNDP Geoff program for civil society organizations, and he's working on, he says here, he's a CSO, civil society representative on the Intergovernmental Working Group on the future strategic framework of the UN climate, it's the UN Convention to combat desertification. So we have an environmentalist, he's in energy, he's in desertification, he's in drought, and he's going to talk to us about the new narratives, the new impetus. So, and we're really happy. I know we're in East Africa, but we thought let's have a West African perspective as well. So Emmanuel, over to you. If you could be 15 minutes or so, that would be perfect.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, all protocol observed. Good morning. Before I reach here, I'm in Nairobi. I was in the field monitoring some of our projects with communities. And then guys sent me an email asking me, would you be ready or would you like to address some keynotes for this session? I think you have heard how I was described. That's mean that I have many fish to fry. But I remembered that I had a moral agreement or a moral pact with my Fulani parents. In Senegal, we have what we call a relationship, joking relationship between Fulani and Serer that facilitate the social relation. And I say how I will tackle these issues. I don't know if I will bring something new in terms of narrative or impetus, but I do hope that my word will fit with the purpose. And then I say, okay, let's see. We had a journey with SPARC, maybe that order have a journey with the programs that are leading related to pastoralism and even farming. And I say, okay, I will go with the journey that we had through SPARC. And everyone here can make his own story with the program you're leading. You have heard many stories from the communities. You have heard many narratives from the communities. You have heard many testimonies about the work you're doing. You're talking about drylands. When you're describing drylands, I remember recently I was invited in Paris by the Agence Française de Développement for prospective thinking or reflection. But the way that people are describing the drylands or painting the drylands is like I said to them, you're describing our region like the Guernica of Pablo Picasso. For those who know painting, is like the end of the world. I'm not sure that that is the case. And I will come back on that. Of course, we agree we can add in the painting. I don't know if you will put gray or white, but of course, there is a lot of challenge within the drylands. It was said at the beginning. We have droughts, we have floods, we have conflict in many areas. If you go from the north, if you accept that Senegal is the north of Africa, crossing, going through the Horn of Africa to the eastern countries, you will see that there are many conflicts. But this is mainly because these people are really marginalized. They are disconnected from the center of decision. There is no infrastructure to reach these people. And I think this needs to be voiced. Not only research, we should go beyond research. Beyond research, beyond resilience, there is humanity, there is justice, there is equity. If we are not putting the human in front of all what we are doing, the purpose of our research is just for some people, maybe at academic, university, researchers, but not for action. And the research have to contribute to change something. For us, this is really important. We've said the SPARC have contributed to a paradigm shift in terms of resilience of people, resilience of ecosystem, prosperity, peace. I may say the challenge remains in many localities that we have already visited. If you go back there, you will see that the conflict are still around. How can we solve this if there is no infrastructure, if these people are forgotten by the development? So as I've said, the SPARC initiative, maybe that we could talk about also at PAD or Jameel Observatory, they are in full compliance with the second principle of the United Nations Universal Values, which is leave no one behind. Through the research, I think we have contributed to raise awareness of the link between climate change, conflict, and sustainability. And for me, this is really important because everyone is talking about climate change. It is not an environmental issue only. It is not a political issue. It is a geopolitical issue. That means some countries have reached already the cap of their development. At the same time, there are some countries who are even did not start their development. And we say, how can we change trajectory to low carbon development? If we have to change our trajectory, everyone should be involved. The climate change should become a citizenship issue. So if we want to change a paradigm shift to a low carbon society and resilient, everyone should be involved, not only scientists or those who are negotiating or those who are designing the strategies and the policies, but also the communities, because their future is related to that. We have contributed strengthening the political dialogue on pastoralism, and I think that is important to talk more about pastoralism, and I will back on that when I will give some recommendation related to that. It is a system, it is a culture, and it is important in our society. We have influence policies. Some of you will say we have contributed at least to have some indicators within the GGA, the Global Goal on Adaptation. And I think this is really important. We have to really inject the knowledge, the evidence where it is needed, because people need knowledge. They need argument and substance for the narratives. And if we have it, why we will pick it under the table, we should share it, definitely, and it is important. So some of you will say we have contributed at least in the development of the Declaration on Climate, Relief, Recovery, and Peace. It is a key achievement. We have other examples that some of you during the 2 days will share with the audience. We carry out some action at the community level to strengthen resilience, but this needs to be increased. So during our journey, we were able to realize that beyond the overmentioned challenges, dryland can seem like a paradox because they are full of riches and opportunities. Definitely. And during the meetings I was talking about, I say to the French people, the army was there. It was a very strategic meeting, and I have the honor to be really invited. I cannot understand that where there is more than 20 river basins, I will name some of. We have the transboundary river basin, the most important of which we have the Niger river basin with 11 countries. We have the Senegal river basin with 4 countries. We have the Volta basin with 6 countries. We have the Lake Chad with 6 countries. We have the Nile with 11 countries. We are well provided with water. Do we have a problem of water? No. The main problem we have is access to water. I mean, have installation of drillings and others. But the water is there. In some parts, yes, we can say that there is scarcity of water, but the water is there. So we need to change our mindset, because if we always say that dry lands, you cannot do anything, yes, for sure, you will do the minimum. But if you say there is a lot to do, you will do more. And these are the examples that we have water. Biodiversity is richer than sometimes, though in the drylands, and both farmers and pastoralists take an intense interest in natural diversity. My first field visit when I started working on environment was in the silvopastoral area in Senegal, the Ferlo for those who know Senegal. And these people, beyond the pastoralism, there was planting tree. Some of you know the gum Arabic or the Arabic gum. And these come to be in a process of a value chain process. They get commitment or agreement with some industries to transform the Arabic gum. And I think this is important. In some countries or locality, we as ENDA, we are providing communities with solar energy to chill the milk, because we know that during the rainy season, there is a lot of milk and anybody cannot know how to transform. So we put there some unit to chill the milk, to pasteurize the milk, and to transform it into yogurt. And I think if we can name many value chain in the drylands. If we start working in a small business, I think change will come. In drylands, beyond prosperity, there is solidarity. When you go there, you will meet some people. You say that these people, they don't have much, but all what they have, they will share it with you. That is humanity. And for us, this is riches. We also learned during the journey that traditional and innovative practice, such as drought-resistant crop, water harvesting, and agroforestry are used to build resilience. So we need to value the local know-how. Nomadic and migratory movement are crucial for livestock owners to access temporary resources during the climatically unstable period. A shift toward decentralized governance and community-level initiative is necessary to address the specific challenge of drylands region. Today, with SPARC and other initiatives, we have not reached the end of the journey. We have simply reached an important milestone where we must take time to reinvent ourselves in light of the global geopolitical context and the challenge of all kinds that our population are facing. Decrease of the international aid by 9 to 70% in 2025 compared to 2004, a year that had already seen a decline after 5 consecutive years of increase. Decrease of humanitarian aid by more than 40%. And there are some countries who announce major budget cuts. We must further support population and countries to improve their access to finance, particularly climate finance, and to better direct investment. I will just quote, based on the publication of the synthesis we did through SPARC in terms of prosperity, resilience, and peace, that the best investment align closely with the socio-ecological logic of dryland system and are suited to the complex, shifting reality of fragile and conflict-affected settings. Without this grounding in life reality, development is at risk of inadvertently become extractive, exclusionary, and unsustainable. We should strengthen cross-border or trans-border cooperation with regional intergovernmental institutions. I think IGAD is one of them, as well as programs such as the Green Wall. I think some countries are part of. I don't know more about Eastern Africa, but I know that there is a regional project to support pastoralists in the Sahel and engage in space for dialogue, climate diplomacy, and others to share our findings. However, after all the work done, we can say together that we have accomplished something by improving understanding and knowledge about pastoralism and agriculture in countries affected by conflict. After all, every action deserves consideration because, as we say, little drop make the rivers. And with all our programs, I think we have contributed to the river flowing. Thank you very much.